This is the Wacom MovinkPad Pro 14, and after properly using it for drawing, sculpting, work, and even taking it on a trip, I can honestly say this is on a league of its own. I'm gonna show you what it's actually like to draw on it, how it compares to using it with, let's say, an iPad Pro 11, what apps really work on an Android tablet, the real downsides that, sometimes people don't tell you about, but also the workarounds to make it better, and whether it makes sense for you as an artist. So stick around because there are a couple of features that genuinely surprise me.
Hey, if you're new around here, my name is Pablo. I'm a 3D concept artist and educator, and I help artists level up their skills in the world of 3D, all in a way that is clear, fun, and actually doable. Now, just a quick heads up before we start with today's video, only because this is something that got me really confused at first. Wacom actually has 3 products in the Movink family, and they're not all the same thing. These 2 right here, these are the MovinkPads. This is the MovinkPad Pro 14, which is the one that we're focusing on in this video. And it's basically a standalone Android tablet that you can draw on, you can take it with you. It is really nice. And then there is the MovinkPad 11, which is a smaller, more affordable version, which is also a standalone. Now there is a third option, which is simply called the Movink, so it doesn't have the pad at the end, so just the Movink. And that one is not a tablet, it's more like a lightweight pen display, more like a Cintiq that needs to be plugged into your computer. So that one is great, it's super thin and nice, but you need to plug it into the computer. These ones, you don't. So I don't have that one with me, but I just wanted to clear things up, just so you know that we're going to be talking about exactly about this specific tablet. So I've reviewed both the MovinkPad Pro 14 and the smaller MovinkPad 11 separately, but this video is focusing on this one, the MovinkPad Pro 14. So if you're looking for something smaller, kind of like a more entry-level, kind of like mid-range tablet, I got a full review of the MovinkPad 11 in just another video, so I'll leave the link below.
I won't spend too long here on the unboxing, but let's be honest, opening a new gadget like this is always satisfying. So yeah, let's go ahead and do it quickly. Inside the box, you get the tablet itself, and the first thing that it really hits you is how thin and how light this device is. Like, it's really, really light. Then there is a USB-C cable, which you will use to charge the device and also connecting it to your PC. But, more on this later. You also get the Pro Pen 3 with a thin grip, which feels super nice on the hand. Some instructions, warranty bits, and all that basic stuff. I also picked up a couple of extra accessories. The cover, which I think is a must in my opinion, and I wish that, honestly, it was included in the price. I also got the foldable stand for Wacom, and this one is more of a luxury extra item, but honestly, it's really, really nice, and it helps a lot with the comfortable drawing. Now, a quick walk around, you got speakers on each side of the tablet, a flap here that you can open here for the micro SD card, so, it might be handy if you need extra storage. Volume controls up on the right corner, and the power button right next to them as well. At the back of the tablet, there are also 4 really subtle rubber bumps for each corner, so when you lay it flat on a desk, it doesn't slide around or scratch anything.
All right, first impressions. The very first thing that I'll say about this thing is that it feels super premium. It's elegant, it's clean, it just feels like it's really, really well made. And in terms of the size, as you can see, the screen is massive and it looks awesome. It's an OLED display, so everything looks nice and sharp. And honestly, the moment I turned this on, I just wanted to jump right in and sculpt and paint and sketch. So really, really nice device.
Here's a quick comparison with a few Intuos tablets that I have or that have been used throughout the years, just in case you own one of these devices and want a bit of a reference in terms of the size. And it still blows my mind that actually is thinner than an older Intuos Pro. That's kind of crazy. But the real magic starts the moment that you begin drawing. Of course, this is after all a Wacom tablet and it feels incredible. The first thing that really stands out is just how good this screen feels. It has that matte finish that resembles that sort of paper texture like, and it reduces the glare. The pen response is excellent, the pressure feels super natural, the tilt of the pen also works beautifully, and all of this is obviously depending on the app that you choose ultimately and the brush settings that you choose. So in this case, what I'm showing you here is from Infinite Painter. And there is no weird disconnect between your hand and the line itself, so no lag whatsoever, and it's really, really precise. No need to adjust any weird settings to calibrate displays or, the pen tip with the actual stroke, any of that. It just works really, really well straight out of the bat. So yeah, I've been using Wacom devices for a long time, and this to me feels like a proper Wacom device, not just a tablet or an Android tablet trying to pretend to be a drawing tool. It is a proper Wacom device. Everything just feels very familiar and I want to say like predictable in a way, which is exactly what you want when you're sketching or when you're sculpting on the go. Just keep in mind that this is ultimately an Android system. So if you come from Apple, it might be a little bit of a learning curve. One thing that I did notice straight away, and I will just mention it here because it kind of like makes sense in the context, is the lack of customization for the pen buttons. At first, I was a little bit disappointed because I do rely heavily on shortcuts and, modifying things for the pen depending on the app. But then I remember that this is obviously a standalone Android tablet. There is no real point of mapping things like the right click or the control keys here, at least in the same way that you would do in desktop. Once I got used to this, it actually stopped bothering me. You're interacting with these more like a tablet than a traditional pen display. And in that context, it totally makes sense. Another thing that really stands out right away is the display, of course. The colors are vibrant, the visuals are super sharp, and because this is an OLED display, the contrast is just beautiful. Black tones look really clean and deep. So overall, everything feels really responsive and snappy. There's no lag, like I mentioned, no weird hesitation when you kind of like try to draw or sculpt. And it gives you that sort of immediate feeling that you're using a high-end product. All of that combined with, the screen, the pen pressure, the performance, it just makes you want to use it. Nothing gets in the way.
One thing that people definitely ask about would be the ergonomics. And this out of the box is just a flat slab right here. And there's no built-in stand, there is no kickstand at the back, nothing like that. But the thing is, this tablet is big, but it's really, really light. So you can hold it, I can hold it in my lap, or I can hold it on my arm while I'm sketching, standing up, and you won't get tired. It's really, really light.
If you want a better drawing angle, you can use the Wacom stand. But as I said at the beginning, this is an extra kind of like luxury accessory that you'll need to buy. But honestly, it is awesome. It is very light, super sturdy, and it fits totally fine in a carry case that I got for my keyboard and my mouse. But more of this later. And this is how I use it on my desk. I wish there were at least maybe 2 more angles to choose from. So I was a little bit worried about that I cannot choose the angle that I want, but it really sits at a perfect angle for comfort. So I'm really happy with it. Once it's there, it feels just like a proper drawing station. And like I said, this is just an extra and you don't need it 100%. It's just nice to have. If anything, you can just put a couple of books behind it and that will do the trick. Now, speaking of ergonomics, the Pro Pen 3, which comes with the device, is really nice and light. And somehow, I personally find it actually more comfortable than the iPad Pencil, which I've grown to love as well over time. But that said, I'm very used to my Cintiq Pro Pen, which again is a Pro Pen 3, but it's thicker, or like at least the grip of it is thicker, and you can adjust the weight for balance. That one feels really, really nice, and I feel like at home with that one. So I was really happy to discover that my Pro Pen from the Cintiq Pro works perfectly fine with the MovinkPad Pro as well. So regardless of which display I'm using, I can stick to the same pen for consistency, and I don't feel that I'm changing devices too much. It's a tiny little thing, but I was generally very happy when I accidentally discovered this.
Now, this one is a big one. The MovinkPad Pro 14 can also work as a drawing display connected to your PC. So essentially, a mini Cintiq wirelessly. So this is ZBrush right now running on my PC, and I can just work directly on the tablet. But before I show you the USB and the wireless display mode, which is how I use it, there's one thing I want to make clear because I was a little bit frustrated when I first tried it. This is not just a plug and play and it works the first time, but I think it's because it is still a kind of like a beta testing feature, but ultimately it worked well for me.
All right, so the first thing you need to do is register the device. You can go to the Wacom support section, click on register a product, and then register your MovinkPad Wacom account. Once your device is being registered, go back to the Wacom support and click on the software office. This opens a page in a browser, and under the utilities, you'll see one called the Wacom MovinkPad Instant Pen Display. Bit of a mouthful, but that's the one that you need. Download the version for your operating system, and this software is only available after registering the device. That's very important. Now we need to set up the tablet so it can talk to your computer. On the MovinkPad, go to the settings, then find the About Pad, scroll all the way to the bottom and tap on build number 7 times. This basically enables the developer mode. I have already done this, so this is why it's already here, but you just need to tap 7 times. Next, go to the settings, then system, and then you'll see the developers option. Go in there, scroll down, and all you need to do here is enable the USB debugging. One last thing to do on the tablet, you need to go to the Wacom Lab tab and enable the Instant Pen Display mode. That's it. Now, if you pull down the notifications from the top, just sliding with your finger from the top, you'll see the instant pen display mode button. You just need to tap on that and you'll get this type of screen asking you to connect to the PC. All right, so just to be clear, this is a standalone tablet. You don't need a computer to use it at all, but you can actually use it as a pen display for your PC. Think about it as a mini Cintiq that you can plug into your computer. Basically, this turns into an extra monitor when you plug it into the computer or connect it wirelessly that also has the Wacom pen display capabilities, which is awesome. And even though this feature specifically is still evolving, it is easily one of the most exciting extras that this device has. You can connect it to the computer using the USB cable, or my preference is to just do it wirelessly, which is actually pretty wild. You can just be sitting on your sofa and accessing your computer from there. And this is where it gets really interesting. You get the best of both worlds. A beautiful display tablet that works just like a Cintiq, plus the power of your computer. So you could be sculpting in ZBrush, modeling in Blender, texturing in Substance 3D Painter, or doing any other type of desktop work, but using the precision and the sensitivity of a Wacom pen display. There are just a couple of things to be aware at the moment. First, unlike traditional Cintiqs, you won't see the mouse cursor when you hover over the pen. The cursor only appears once you actually touch the screen. Honestly, it took me a little bit of, time to get used to this one, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just something that you need to be aware of, is that if you're coming from a Cintiq experience, it might feel a little bit weird at first. The second is that the buttons on the pen cannot be customized in the display mode right now. Pressing them, any button at all in the pen, just brings up a small side panel with a keyboard modifiers like the Control, the Alt, and the Shift, and an option to disconnect from the PC. I personally relied a lot on custom pen shortcuts when using the Cintiq, so this felt a little bit limiting for me. But the thing is, since you're usually right next to a keyboard anyway, if you're using it as a display for your computer, all the shortcuts are still there. Overall, the feature works really, really well, especially considering how new this is. And I don't use it really that much because my main monitor is actually a Cintiq Pro 27-inch, so I just rather use that one. But if you don't have a pen display or you don't have a Cintiq, or even if you just want an extra monitor that you can also draw on it, this is a really powerful option. All right, so if you're coming from an iPad, Procreate is probably the app that you're gonna miss the most. That's, plain simple. The closest thing that I've found for an Android system is an app called HiPaint. And honestly, it's really clean, really nice to use. And is it Procreate? No, not at all. Does it have the same sort of Procreate awesome brushes? No. There's no comparison there. But it works really, really well, and it gets surprisingly close to what you can do in Procreate. It's just slightly different. Again, it's about adjusting your mindset a bit. Now, in terms of the apps that I'm going to review, the key thing to remember is that this is not really about the MovinkPad Pro as a device. It's more of an Android thing. The app ecosystem on Android is just not as, let's say, matured as what you can find on Apple. That said, there are heaps of really powerful apps that I've been using a lot, and I wanted to show them to you so that you can actually test them out as well. So then we have Clip Studio Paint. This is a paid app, but the MovinkPad Pro actually comes with a really nice offer that lets you try this for a year, I think. It might be wrong or might be different depending on when you get it or where you get it. But even though this is technically a painting app, this is probably the closest thing that I found to something like Photoshop on Android. It works very similar, and I can use it for compositing or, doing a little bit of paint over for more complex pieces directly in there. This is also one of the apps that I personally prefer to use with a keyboard, just because I'm much faster working with shortcuts and it's very close to the shortcuts that I use in Photoshop. Then we have Infinite Painter. This is very straightforward, simple commands, very clean interface. There is a pro version, but honestly, you can just do a lot with just the free version. The brushes here are some of the best that I've used for a sketching or thumbnailing, and using it with the MovinkPad Pro just feels awesome. This is a great app to sketch things out, but also to do paint overs or even refine renders if you do that sort of thing. I tend to push my renders a bit more, just like in this case, adding some scratches on the Android metal body or enhancing the wear and tear, that sort of thing. Also, taking advantage of the soft brush, I can add a bit of glow, for example, around the eyes or, any of the emissive parts of this robot before playing with the blending modes and the layers to get the desired effect. To put things in perspective, I showed this app to my 4-year-old nephew, and in about 10 minutes, he was already comfortable picking colors, testing brushes, and obviously doing his own creative thing. But, it was something that he's never done before. And it was very easy to, for him to get comfortable selecting things and actually painting stuff. Another app that I personally really like is called Concepts. This one is a bit different from the usual sort of painting or sketching app, but it's fantastic for note-taking and for do a bit of planning. I've been using it for all sorts of things like planning courses and tutorials, sketching ideas, or even figuring out stuff like something random like a new set of garden beds that I want to build for the backyard. And it's just a convenient app to have always open, to be honest. Working with this app on the MovinkPad Pro feels really natural and it's a lot of fun. Then we have the Krita app, which is actually a big win for Android, and I'm personally a fan of this app. Krita is just an amazing desktop app, and now it is also available for Android. And I use it as my main tool for thumbnailing or exploring ideas on the computer. So having it in the tablet is a huge plus for me. Overall, it works quite well. And one of my favorite things about Krita are the brushes. They work really nice here too, because the brush system in Krita is just incredible. The only thing to keep in mind is that this isn't a native Android app. So it basically is a desktop version adapted to work on the tablet. So sometimes you get a few quirks here and there, like pop-up windows and things like that. But, it responds really well to some of the commands. You can press with 2 fingers to undo. You can press 3 fingers to redo. You can press with 4 fingers and go in full screen. That sort of stuff. It works really well. So overall, it's an amazing app. I've been using it quite a lot. I personally prefer using it with a keyboard, but if I don't have that as an option, it's still something really, really powerful, and it just works really well. And finally, we have a Sketchbook Pro. This is just a very solid, reliable app for all kinds of sketching. This is basically my go-to for generating quick ideas and thumbnails. It has some really handy features like symmetry, which I use a lot to explore ideas before taking them into 3D. I usually start with something very rough, something that looks like absolutely nothing, that it's a bit of chaos. But then I just play with different brushes until that sort of initial blob of ink starts turning into something that has potential. And the whole experience in the MovinkPad Pro feels so comfortable and, like I said, very familiar. And honestly, it's just so much fun that even though I was doing the review for this video, I just got carried away and started sketching this weird shaman guy and I just went with it. All right, for sculpting, and I know this is a big one, Nomad Sculpt is an absolute no-brainer. It's an incredibly versatile sculpting app, really powerful, and since ZBrush, which is my preferred sculpting app, is still an iPad-only application, this is 100% my go-to app for Android. So Nomad Sculpt is fantastic. On the MovinkPad Pro 14, it's super responsive. There is no noticeable lag. I can easily build my blockout using primitives before jumping into sculpting. And one thing that I really like is how easy it is to load a reference image. So I'm going to bring a sketch, in this case, the one that I made earlier on in the Sketchbook Pro, and I'm just going to simply match the proportions while setting up the main shapes. I usually start very simple, using basic forms for the head, then combine and remesh everything. And it's a really straightforward approach, and it works surprisingly well on a tablet. And I know this is more of a general workflow than anything related to this app. It's just that this is how I start things in ZBrush as well. And I'll just leave a link to the beginner series that I have in ZBrush for desktop in case you want to learn a bit of that. So to speed things up, I'm just going to add a body, which I prepared earlier on, following the same process to build it. And I'm just going to place the head on it, just to get closer to the original sketch. This is obviously a very, very rough 3D sketch, but it's kind of amazing that you can do all this sort of stuff and all this work on a tablet now. Nomad Sculpt as an app is quite deep, so it does take a little bit of time to get used to, but this is one of those apps that is absolutely worth investing your time into, especially if you want to push yourself to learn it while working on an actual project. Here I wanted to push things a little bit more to see how the tablet handles something a bit heavier. So this model right now is close to 3 million polygons, and I've cranked up the rendering features and the post-processing to essentially test the performance. I'll just set up a simple key light and a rim light. Then I'm going to enable things like the global illumination, ambient occlusion, the depth of field, the tone mapping, curvature, basically everything that you can throw at this. And the wild part is that all of this that is still running in real time as a render on a tablet, it works really well. Even with all of this enabled and a pretty heavy mesh, the experience feels really smooth. There is a tiny bit of lag right when you start rotating or zooming, but after you start doing that, it responds really well. So as you can see, you can use the MovinkPad Pro to start with a simple sketch, turn it into a rough 3D sculpt, and even generate a render. From there, you can also export that image and do a bit of paint over like I showed you earlier on, and do a bit of color correction and that sort of thing with all the apps that I've mentioned earlier. I wanted to test this tablet properly, so on a recent trip to Costa Rica, I deliberately left my iPad Pro at home, and I basically took the MovinkPad Pro 14 as my main device for work. And I was honestly
really surprised on how much real work I can get done on this tablet.
For example, I use Slack to communicate with my team and collaborators, and the mobile app works great on the phone, but there's no real tablet version. So on the MovingPad, it feels more like a stretch phone app. And at the end, I just end up using the browser version, and it worked totally fine. It's just little things like that you need to adapt to or feel comfortable with making the change. So for my setup, I paired my MovingPad Pro 14 with a really nice foldable Bluetooth keyboard from ProtoArc, which also comes with a Bluetooth mouse that is pretty flat and a small stand. This setup was honestly perfect for traveling. It is compact, it is lightweight, and it's really practical. Everything fits here really nicely in this case, including the small stand as well. And this stand right here, it feels a bit basic, or it might feel a bit flimsy, but I think it works great. It's very simple, but it gives you multiple angles as well. I also bring with me the official Wacom stand for the MovingPad Pro, which, it folds nicely into its own little sleeve, and a small USB-C hub from Ugreen in case I need to keep the tablet charging while, connecting other devices. The mouse from ProtoArc, as I said, is really slim, but it is surprisingly comfortable, and the foldable keyboard is great. I especially like that this is a full keyboard with the number pad and everything on the right-hand side, and it doesn't fold right through the spacebar, which makes it much easier to type on. Once you pair your keyboard and your mouse over Bluetooth, they recognize straight away, and then you can just work. This setup is obviously great for admin work, emails, general tasks, and it's also really useful if you rely on shortcuts like I do. So for longer sculpting sessions, let's say using Nomad Sculpt with the keyboard, I can quickly access commands or things that I use constantly, like smoothing with the Shift key, inverting brushes with Alt, or masking areas with Control. One small thing that is worth mentioning specifically about the Nomad Sculpting app before I forget is that to trigger things like the smooth function, when you don't have any keyboard and you want to touch on the actual button, sometimes you need to lift the pen quite a bit, or at least more than what I expected. Otherwise, the app prioritizes the pen input based on the proximity to the screen. It's a tiny little thing that might confuse you at first, but again, it's very easy to just get used to, and once you know it's there, you just work around that.
One thing that I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did was watching content on this thing. Obviously, it's probably not the reason you'll buy a tablet like this or spend that much money on a tablet to just watch Netflix. But it's something that I thought it was really, really good because the display is amazing and it's large.
Obviously, not probably the reason why you'll consider buying this tablet, but honestly, it is absolutely amazing. It's sharp, vibrant, and with that OLED panel, that OLED display, watching movies here is a real treat. Something else that I didn't even realize at first is that this tablet has no camera. I only noticed this when I wanted to quickly snap a sketch that I did on a pen of paper, and then I realized that I don't really need one. No camera bump means that the tablet sits perfectly flat on the desk, and there's no lens scratching, no wobble, none of that. So for a drawing tablet, I honestly think this is a better decision. My phone's camera is probably better anyway, and I can send the photo to my Google Drive and I can see it instantly on my tablet.
So after spending proper time with this tablet, drawing, sculpting, working with it, just traveling with it, what really stands out is how versatile this thing is. It is probably the first time that I personally really consider an Android tablet as a true replacement of my laptop or anything that I can work on when I'm on the go. It's a great drawing tablet with all the Wacom suite properties in it. It's a solid sculpting device that handles heavy files like 2 million polygons, 3 million polygons pretty well. And it also works as a pen display, as I showed you earlier. And on top of that, it's a really capable Android tablet. So it just works really, really well. This is by far the most fun I've ever had with a mobile Android tablet that I can also use to do, proper work when I'm traveling. And honestly, I think this is one of the best products that Wacom has ever created. So if you're still deciding between the MovinkPad Pro 14 and the MovinkPad 11, check out the link in the description where I cover basically another review of just this tablet so you can compare it. I'll see you there.